Okay, welcome back. Remember that the healing streams will be happening on the 9th till the 11th of July. And boy, the earth is going to be saturated with the manifested presence of God in every single home. Now, before that break, I did tell you that there is something that is part of life, but how you're able to maneuver and ensure that this thing that is part of life doesn't overwhelm you and get you to the point where you're broken down physically is what we are going to be talking about today. And just in case you're wondering, Sylvia, what are you talking about? What is part of life? Have you ever heard that stress is part of life? I heard it all, and I was like, So what do we do to manage this stress? Because life definitely always makes its demands on us. And now to do justice to this very topic, we have someone really special here. He is Dr. Okunola Olushola, the consultant pediatric neurologist from the University of Benin Teaching Hospital in Benin. He's also a senior lecturer, Department of Child Health, School of Medicine, University of Benin, Benin City. Hi, doctor. Good to be here. You're
Thank
finally
you very
here.
much. Yes.
We have been looking
Happy to be
forward
here.
to meeting you, and now doctor is here. Doctor, I said something.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
We've heard that stress is a part of life. How true is that? Because can there not be any stress? Can't we not be stressed? Is it true that stress is a part of life?
Yes, stress is a part of life. Because if you look at the definition, stress is the response of the body or the person to spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical changes in the environment and then within the person. There are changes within the person, there are changes in the environment. If you take an example of a building, to have a beautiful building, stress is going to be placed on some structures for that building to stand. But those structures must be adapted to cope with that stress. If not, there will be no building. So likewise, to be an individual who is able to cope in a particular environment, first, there are things the environment brings to you. Secondly, there are things within you that you want to impose or impact on the environment. You have dreams, goals, and achievements. So they're going to make you change some things about yourself, about your environment. So these responses can be the normal response. For example, you have an exam. You're going to put yourself under some measure of stress to get your desired result. But it's not something you do every day. You cannot be a student who is reading every day in a whole year to prepare for an exam. So there is a period for it. So stresses have their positive effects because we change our environment by imposing pressure on it for either positive or negative results. Now, the person's response to internal and external changes can be excessive or not enough, and in the process, the result the person gets on his or her system can be positive or negative. So it's absolutely impossible for there not to be some measure of stress, because stress is a force that your body undergoes, your mind undergoes, your spirit undergoes, your emotions undergo, as a result of changes you want to make or changes being directed at you. So the challenge is when it is sustained, that means uninterrupted for too long, because your body's response also involves release of chemicals, release of hormones that will constantly drive either your heart rate, your sleeping pattern, your sex drive, your concentration, and when it gets excessive, you are not able to achieve the normal goal for the day. And then the satisfaction you derive drops. And when that satisfaction drops, other factors can creep in. Poor self-esteem, looking at yourself as a failure, depression, all kinds of anxiety, then uncontrollable and sustained anger that is directed at you and everybody around you. So if you go to an organization, there will always be something demanded of you. That's a stress. But you are paid or remunerated in one way or the other for what you have put through. To acquire the necessary skill, you need to put yourself under some things. So because if you refuse to do anything, really what will be happening to you is what you don't want. your life will be under control of factors, events, and circumstances beyond you. Then there are people around you, environmental issues around you, weather systems around you, economic systems around you, spiritual systems around you that exert force upon you, either for good or for bad. So how are you going to cope? That now becomes the issue. But that you're going to run away in this world system from any form of it, then you are not existing.
So that means you need stress to exist.
Yeah, it's part of what you move on.
Stress is force.
It's a force. Spiritual, mental, physical, emotional changes within you to cope with changes around you, or even changes within you. As simple as somebody is pregnant. The person desires to have a baby, but the pregnancy comes with some things, and that person has to cope. So, if the person doesn't want a baby, then he will not go through the stress of pregnancy.
So as long as you have dreams and desires,
There are some
you're ready
things,
for
yes.
the force
That-
that dream and desire puts on you to help you achieve.
Beautiful. And then other people's dreams and desires. Like the dream of the armed robber or the kidnapper. He has a dream of making something out of nothing, looking for someone who is working hard to take from. So you have to take precautions. You have to take some steps to prevent that person's dream from coming to pass concerning you. And that will involve some stress on you.
So, I mean, you rightly used
In fact, you
I'm just-
encapsulated everything.
everything, but I wanted to, I mean, some of the signs that you mentioned as regards stress, you mentioned anxiety, you talked about change of mood, and so some of those things, how do you know that you're stressed in a way that you're not thinking, when you feel some way, you're thinking, oh, maybe you're sick or so, but it's just stress. How can you manage? How do you know that this is stress and not that you're sick? Because sometimes when we feel these little headaches or when you're like,
malaria.
I have malaria or something, you know, and you just
do
know
you
that.
identify
How do you
stress?
identify stress? And then how can you manage?
Okay, so let me give you a simple analogy. The body has a fight or flight response. For example, if you sight a snake, there's a response. You want to get away from the snake, especially if it's a dangerous one. Now, another person sights the same snake and moves towards it because that person has information to handle it. Now look at someone who sees every situation around him or her as sighting a snake. That flight or fight response, that increased heart rate, increased poor sleep, constantly hedgy, trying to move, is now there perpetually. That person now is under the stress of the situation around him or her. So information can change that flight or fight response.
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing is, it will help you identify, why am I constantly edgy? Why do I think everybody is criticizing me when they raise a point about what I do? Okay, you can be in a workplace and that's what goes on for 5 years. Everyone that tries to make a comment is attacking you. So you need information to know that in this workplace, it is in your best interest that people make comments about your work. Some may be nice, some may not be nice. You have to learn how to pick what you need to pick. So that is how you begin to know, why do I see everybody as an antagonist? Your way of thinking about people has been altered by a particular behavior pattern because you are edgy, anxious, then poor sleep. Why are you not falling asleep? Sleep is a blessing. The time you don't want to sleep because you have something to achieve, beautiful. But when you want to sleep, you should sleep. And then you see the effect on relationships. You don't want to talk to family members. You are constantly complaining about everybody. Something is going on with you, which you are trying to externalize. So a time comes, you just discover that this is not a sickness of something I'm going to take a drug for an infection or something. Is that I'm not handling something well. and it's about me. And health is a state of spiritual, mental, and physical well-being, emotional, also well-being. So what does that tell you? When these things are not going the right way, it's not just about you are sick with something. The stress will lead to a sickness. So you now need to ask yourself, how do I manage it? And so that's why in managing stress, you have to learn to get information about how to do your work with better productivity. Because if you are productive, your stress is less. The desire to accomplish has been done, and it resulted in what you wanted. There is also a feeling, a calming down of your system from adrenaline, noradrenaline, constant cortisol release, trying to push you up and up. When it gets uncontrollable, the individual will notice relationships. Then the spiritual things that bring you joy, they will not bring you joy. The emotional things that bring you joy will not. The physical things that bring you joy will not. You start indulging in things that make you unhappy with yourself. So you find out that you actually